Hello, everybody. I'm Shannon LaBruyere. This is Sunday Night Live, and I am alive and loving it tonight. I hope you're doing as great as I am. I have had a spectacular day. The weather has been marvelous here in Michigan. Oh, look, the perfectionist in me is already assessing my hair. All right, so I'm going to let it go. This weather has been amazing. I hope you've been enjoying great weather where you're at, whether you're in our hemisphere and moving into spring and summer, or maybe you're on the opposite side of the world and you're starting to go into fall. Both seasons, beautiful times of change and transition. Hey, Julie, glad you jumped on. Welcome. So yeah, we're having a grand time here in Michigan, and I'm glad you're taking the time to join me tonight to prepare for a week that I'm confident is going to bring change, whether it's change you planned or change you didn't. This week is going to hold some amazing changes for you and for me. And the key for us is to be not ready for every little thing, but have the mindset that says, whatever comes my way, I'm gonna roll with it. Shay, I'm glad you're here. Welcome, welcome. I saw that adorable, adorable grandbaby of yours today. Oh my gosh, those cheeks, she's gorgeous, just amazing. I love Facebook for that because we get to see other people's lives, parts of their lives that we'd never have access to. So thank you for letting me be a part of it. Julie, spring is in the air and it is amazing. Ken, welcome. Thanks for jumping on. All right, so tonight we are going to talk about some tips that I've learned as a perfectionist on how to thrive in change. So for those of you who are perfectionists, welcome. You look amazing. I am so glad you combed your hair before you jumped on, even though none of us can see you. I know. Sometimes we just get in these habits, these things that we just do, whether they make a difference or not. And so if you're one of those people, join the club. Lori, I'm glad you're here. So glad you jumped on. We're talking about perfectionism and people who are perfectionists. So if you're one of those people who's a perfectionist and you love it and you are thrilled with your lifestyle and you just can't get enough of being perfect, yay for you. And you might want to just bug out. Like, now's your time. You can just turn this off, go organize your library in alphabetical order, or maybe you want to go through the office drawer and put all of your post-it notes in all of the order of the colors of the rainbow. Shout out to Roy G. Biv, right? If you love being a perfectionist and you've never felt the pinch, then this might not be relevant to you today. But for those of us who have felt the pinch, those of us who have felt the stress and the strain that comes from being a perfectionist who's been forced into change, then you are in the right place. And Shay, just so you know, I cannot see you. I can only see you if you want me to, or if I want you to. So I've got a little button I can push. So if you're there in your pajamas, whoever you are welcome here. This is a place that 100% absolutely does not require you to have brushed your teeth before you jump in. So all are welcome. But today we're going to focus on perfectionists. And I have been a perfectionist. I have been a perfectionist almost all of my life. And for those of you, you might just want to raise your hand if you know, yeah, I'm a perfectionist. We take a lot of heat. We really do. I mean, if you read women's magazines or if you go to any kind of business trainings, at one point or another, somebody's going to lecture you about being a perfectionist and tell you, just stop. You don't have to do it. It's no good. And, they're right, probably. Probably as perfectionists, we put a little bit too much pressure on ourselves. But I'm not here to lecture you about having high standards. I'm not here about lecturing you because you have a very deep-seated commitment to the English language and you adore the Oxford comma. I'm one of those people who didn't ever use the Oxford comma, so I've gotten into butt-headed conversations with other English grammar perfectionists about the value of the Oxford comma. And for those of you who aren't familiar, you can Google it when we're done, and you will see there is so much out there about the Oxford comma. You had no idea just how nitpicky people can be about punctuation. But that's another perfectionist rant. We won't go down that road. What I'm interested in helping you do tonight is to learn how to look at change and not feel the pain of being a perfectionist. To do things a little differently, to think a little differently when you're in the midst of change. When we're on still waters, hi, yes, when we're on still waters, and we don't need to change, we don't have to react to anything because our life is just going good, right? We can get very good at managing the status quo. And as a perfectionist, I can tell you, I love how good it feels to be able to navigate the status quo. I know what to expect. I know what I'm doing. Paula, welcome and thanks for being here. I am so at home on those still waters, being perfect because I know what I'm doing. I've done it before. But change is a different scenario altogether. When change comes at me unexpectedly, now I might not know what to do. It's a surprise, and I am no longer in my comfort zone. I can't always be perfect in the midst of big change. And that translates into the big changes that I've designed for myself. And so I'm going to share with you a little bit of my journey through this Sunday Night Live process that I've been doing for, gosh, about 6 months now. So it's been a while. I'm still new at it, but a lot of you have been on this journey with me from the time I've started. And so I'm going to share a little bit about what I've learned, and hopefully it'll help you as you decide to make changes in your life and you want to know, how do I deal with that piece of me that really wants to be perfect before I do anything different? I'm going to help you with that. All right, yesterday I had a conversation with a very dear friend. She's an entrepreneur. She has had many businesses. She's a midwife, which she recently retired from. She owned a yarn store for the longest time, and then she sold it. And then she started a yarn truck, which is sort of like a food truck, but it has yarn in it. And if you are a knitter or a crocheter or a weaver, you know that just the idea of a truck filled with gorgeous yarn just sets the heart aflutter. So she's, just since the time I've known her, gone through 3 huge career transitions that she chose herself. And she and I were talking yesterday, and she said, Shannon, I can't believe how much better your Sunday Night Live broadcast is now than when you first started. And then she went, well, I didn't mean it to come out just like that, she tells me. But you know what? I loved hearing it. I loved hearing that Sunday Night Live, the one that you're seeing right now, is far better than the one that you saw 6 months ago. My friend Carol, who's popped on, I can tell, she sent me a little message after last week's broadcast and said some really, really kind things, but also really powerful things, and told me that she'd seen my growth, that she'd seen how much better I was getting over the course of time. And I'm going to confess to you, there was a time in my life that would have mortified me. I would not have wanted anybody to see me on that journey. I would have only wanted them to see, ooh, polished and perfect, like Mary Poppins, practically perfect in every way. But that's not reality. And so as a perfectionist, one perfectionist to another, this is what I've learned. You cannot get better in your head. You have to actually do the thing for you to get better at doing the thing. When I first started out with these Sunday Night Live broadcasts, and they're archived, many of them, not all, but most of them are archived over at my YouTube channel. When I first started, the lighting was poor. The angle of the phone was poor, so it looked just terrible, like I had this big fat face. There were a million things that when I looked at it, I could see, and I hated them. But this is what I found out. The people who watched were not watching and listening because they thought that I was going to look like a supermodel and that the angle was going to be good and the lighting was going to be great. The reason they watched was because they wanted to know what I had to say. And the perfectionist in me was throwing up all kinds of obstacles to keep me from saying it. I was hiding behind being perfect. I didn't want to start a broadcast because I didn't want anybody to see me be less than perfect. I didn't know what the lighting was going to be like. I'd never done it before. On and on and on. My perfectionist self kept saying. And finally, I decided the message I had to share with people was more important than my need to look perfect to other people. And so that's key. If you're a perfectionist and you're using your perfectionist streak to hide and not share what you have with the world, then your energy is going to the wrong place. It is misguided. That energy that you're using to try and tell yourself, I have to be perfect before I can show anybody, is energy that could be spent getting better. But you're not going to get better in your head. You have to show somebody. My first Sunday Night Live, it wasn't even on a Sunday night. I think it was a Thursday. I think I did a Tuesday one. I did a Thursday one. So I was practicing what night works best, what's going to be a good fit. And a dear friend of mine, a young lady I mentor, and she was so helpful to me, sent me a message. Shannon, I've got a couple of helpful tips that will make your Sunday Night Live broadcast look a little better. And she told me, move your camera, turn on the lights, do this and that. And if you go back and watch, you can see the progression. But I had to get it out there, and I had to allow myself to be less than perfect because I had a message I wanted to share. And then the second thing is that we don't have to listen to the people who don't matter. Now that's something right there. That's something. If you've got a pen, you need to write that down. You don't have to listen to the people who don't matter. The people that I'm talking to tonight are people who want to grow. They want to thrive. They want to be better. They want to stretch. Or maybe they want to want those things, right? Even if they're not there, they want to want them. Those are the people that I'm talking to. Those are not the people who are paying attention to this weird piece of hair right here that just refuses to stay down no matter how many times. See what I mean? You don't care about that. And the perfectionist in me can keep drawing your attention to the things that are wrong, that don't matter, and you'll be distracted. But as the person who's delivering it, I can be distracted by the opinions of the people who weren't going to like it in the first place. They weren't even going to like it in the first place. As a perfectionist, in the midst of change, it is important for us to understand, who am I trying to serve in the midst of this change? If it's a change that we didn't invite, for example, the biggest change to my life that I can think of was when I lost my mom, when my mom passed away. And I had never done that process before. I had never lost anybody close to me. Nobody close to me had ever died, and certainly not my mother. That's a once-in-a-lifetime event. And that change was so vast and so huge, and I wanted to hide because I didn't want to do it wrong and I didn't want to mess up. And then I realized it didn't matter what any doctor thought. It didn't matter what any outsider thought. It didn't matter what my mom's friends thought. What mattered was what my mom thought. And what mattered was what my brother and my sisters thought, and my husband and the grandkids. And when I started in the midst of that change, and I was frozen because I didn't want to make a mistake, when I finally realized these people who matter aren't going to care if I mess up, They'd rather have me be real and try to bring them together, to try to do something that made that process a little bit easier for us, something that could bring us a little bit of peace and comfort. And so I started making phone calls that I would have never made. I was afraid I was going to do it wrong. But I knew in the midst of this huge change, my desire to serve and to help was more powerful than my desire to hide out of fear that I was going to make a mistake. Don't be fooled by the opinions of people who don't matter. I'm going to say that again. Do not be fooled by the opinions of people who don't matter, because they don't matter. They don't. Who matters? The change that you're trying to have, my change, which is to be a top-notch speaker, a empathetic and life-transforming coach, a trainer that helps people to be able to dig in and do what needs to be done in their life. Those are the things that matter to me. And they are so important that I cannot let my perfectionism get in the way. Jason, I'm glad you jumped on. And Shay, thanks for the hands. Yes, woohoo! Amen. We can get really wrapped up in worrying about what the people who don't matter say. This is the problem. If you think about that, you think about the people in your world who matter, the people you're trying to serve, the people that you're trying to help, the people that you're going to be risky for, that you're going to let your perfectionism just slide to the side so that you can try something new that might not be perfect, but it could help them, and you're going to risk it. Think about those people and how many are there right now in your life. How many are in your inner circle? 10 people? Maybe 20 people? Maybe you have a huge family and you've got 50 people. There's billions of people in the world. Don't worry about billions of people's opinions. They've all got them. They've all got them. They're not all going to like it. It doesn't matter. Take that piece of you that wants to be perfect, and instead of focusing that energy on all those people who are going to critique you that don't matter, focus on serving the people who do. You will worry so much less. When you realize that you are among friends, it is freeing, it is exhilarating, and it allows you to take that perfectionist streak and set it aside. Energy that we put toward being perfect and putting on that perfect front is misplaced energy. So, this is what we know. It's not wrong to want things to be good. It's not wrong to want them to be high quality. But when that desire to be perfect becomes a way for us to hide from the world, to pretend it's a mask, it becomes a problem. When I was a young girl, I had to be about 9 years old. And I had a favorite Sunday school teacher. She was amazing. And one day she picked me up and my sisters, and she also had her sister. And we all went out on an outing. It was a lovely day. It was really nice. Thanks, Carol. I'm glad everyone needs to see this. I'm glad you think that, because I believe it. I believe it with my whole heart. So I'm telling you about my Sunday school teacher who was generous to me. She came and picked me up, and a couple of my sisters brought her sister also. We went and had a lovely day. We got McDonald's lunch. It was so nice. And then we pulled into the parking lot of her apartment. And she said to her sister, "Come with me. I want to run up to the house and get something." And then she said to me and my sisters, "We'll be right back." And I said, "Well, can we come?" It felt odd, like we're going to be sitting in this van. This is weird. Can we come? And she goes, "Oh, no. She goes, "No." She goes, "My house is way too messy." She goes, I wouldn't want you to see it." And she had a servant's heart. I mean, she came and took some of her Sunday school kids out to lunch. So I know she had a love for us. But this is what happened. She said to these girls, "Yeah, you can't come see my house right now because it doesn't look good. And I wouldn't want anybody to see it right now. So I'm just going to let my sister come up. And off they went, and we were in the car for probably 20 minutes. But this is what she didn't know. What she didn't know is that my house was a disaster. It was a mess. It was a really big mess. My mom struggled with depression, and people who are depressed don't have a lot of energy. And she had 6 kids, and we weren't really great at cleaning the house. My house was a mess, and I always felt less than because of that. I felt the pressure of it. I felt the pressure of it not being perfect. And when my teacher didn't want me to see behind her curtain because it didn't look perfect, what she didn't know was that if I could have seen that, it would have changed my life. Because I had no idea what people, I thought I was the only one. I thought I was the only one who had a messy house. Look at me crying here, but it really hit close to home. I thought I was the only one. It is okay for you to set aside your perfectionist streak, to let somebody see the real you, because they need to see the real you. They need to see the real you. When you're in the midst of change and you're thinking that the thing you have to do is keep everything perfect and make sure everybody knows that it's flawless and never shed a tear, never make a misstep, when you feel that pressure, what you're actually doing is robbing those people who are in the midst of that change with you. You are robbing them of the opportunity to see you as a real person and to see themselves as somebody who's also real. Sometimes we need to see that person who was so perfect making a misstep. We had a lot of change happening at my work. This would have been 20 years ago or so. Lots of changes happening, and I'd just been placed in a new position, and I was sharing an office with a person who I thought was really nice, and we had really good conversations. In fact, she was telling me a lot about her family, and so I had tons of advice. I don't know if any of you listened to Focus on the Family radio back in the day, but I mean, Dr. James Dobson, he had it going on, and so I look to him for all of my parenting needs. Yeah, some of you have been there. Some of you, and thank you, Shay. Thank you. The truth does set us free. And I love your hashtag, let your tears flow, friend. All right, I will. I'll be less than perfect tonight, Shay. Thank you. So I was filled with tons of advice for this friend, tons of advice. She was a new person. I hardly met her. And I was just in a new job. And so what I had done was I had gone to the Goodwill near my house, and I had bought a bunch of suits at the Goodwill. So I had some really nice suits to wear to my professional position there. And I made sure that I looked perfect every day. And then I would report to the office that I shared with my friend, and I would look amazing, right? I was perfect. Had my suit, had everything going on, had my perfect shoes. It was perfect. And then I would hand out perfect advice about parenting because I had a child. And so I can remember vividly one time she was telling me how her child did not put his toys away. And so I says, oh, well, what you need to do is this. You need to have a box in the top of the closet. And when they don't put their toys away, you just take the toy and you put it up in the top of the box, and you just keep doing that until they wonder where are all their toys. And then, you make the big reveal. And I think I'd picked this up somewhere on Dr. Dobson's show. Anyway, I can remember vividly sharing that with her and her looking at me going, oh, that is a great idea. This is what I didn't tell her. I didn't tell her that I never did that my kid left his toys all over the floor, and I had never once put a box in the top of my closet. I just wanted to look like I knew. And so I faked it. And one day that all came to a head, and we got into a disagreement. And before I knew it, she was telling me, you know what? I'm just sick of you being so perfect. I'm thinking to myself, I'm not perfect. I'm far from perfect. She goes, you got your perfect suits and your perfect kids that do everything right in your perfect house. Friends, my house was not perfect. My kids were not perfect. And I bought my suits for $7 at the Goodwill. She didn't know any of it. What she knew was the front that I'd put on. the front I put on. And so while we were in the midst of this big change, trying to navigate all of the changes that they were making within the personnel, within the staffing, within the office, instead of us being able to connect on common ground, I built a wall. I built a wall. When we share our successes, we build walls. And when we share our struggles, we build bridges. And so that day I told her, you know what? I owe you an apology. I'm only wearing perfect suits because they come from the Goodwill. That little tip I gave you about the toy box, I have no idea if it works. It just sounded good. I've never tried it. And also, if you were to stop at my house right now, there's a load of dirty dishes in the sink, and I haven't folded the laundry from 3 days ago. And we have been friends ever since. People don't need us to be perfect. If you're in the midst of change, it's okay to be human. Just make sure you're not hiding behind your perfectionism. Make sure that you're not holding back on taking action because you're afraid you're going to mess up. And the way you're able to do that is by focusing on the people who matter, not the people who don't. I hope that helps you. If you guys have some tips about how you've navigated change, I would love to hear them. Drop them in the comments. It'll be wonderful to share. I look forward to seeing it. And I love getting your feedback, so keep that coming. For those of you who've not seen the journey of Sunday Night Live, you can check out my YouTube channel. I'll post it, I think I'll try to post it in the notes for this Sunday Night Live. We'll see if that works. If not, you can go to YouTube and search for Shannon LaBruyere and I'll pop up. And if you subscribe and I get 100 subscribers, it'll be a lot easier to find it because I'll be able to name it something that makes sense and not just XYZ PDQ that it says now. But you can go. Check out the early ones, and I'd love to know what you think is better because it's definitely better now. I love you guys. It's been amazing. You have a wonderful, faith-filled, exciting week, and I will see you next Sunday with some of my takeaways from the Purpose Summit, which is Monday and Tuesday, tomorrow and the next day. Inaugural Purpose Summit in Detroit, Michigan. It's happening. I'm excited, and next week I will definitely share with you what I've learned. Rachel, I'm glad you're here. Shelly, it's so good to see you. You guys, we're getting ready to sign off, but if you want to go back and catch it from the beginning, hopefully it'll be something that you can enjoy, and feel free to pass this on and share, because the more people who know how to thrive and change, the better our world gets, right? Mwah! I love you. Bye.